In the last video, we finished creating our form for Alteryx Adventure. In this video, we'll be starting to create the Sharepoint list. And the purpose of the Sharepoint list is to capture the responses from the form and so that we can also read the data in Alteryx when we go to calculate the results as well. So what I'll do is I'll jump over into our SharePoint site, into the same site that's linked to the group that we created the form in. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to hit new up here and I'm going to create a new list. And I'm just going to start with a blank list and edit it from there. So I'm just going to call this Alteryx Adventure list. And you can choose to put a description in here if you'd like. And also if you select this Show Insight Navigation button, the list will show up along here down the side, down this sidebar. So I can create that. And now we've got a list. Now what we want to do is add some columns. So we can select this drop down and we can add some of our columns. So the first one that I'm going to create is a number and I'm going to call it form ID. And in the description, I'm just going to call it the unique response ID from MS Forms. Populating this description is helpful because it will come up as a prompt when we're creating our Power Automate flows. And I want this as a number. I want 0 decimal places. And if I select more options, I want to require that the column contains information, and I also want to ensure that the values are all unique as well. And I can hit the save button. So that's our first field created. And I can add our next one, which is a date and time field for form submit date. And the description for this is the date and time the form was submitted. And I want this to be a date and time field. Include time. And I also want to ensure that the column contains information, but I'm going to allow non-unique values in this field. I'm going to hit the save button. And then the next column that I want to create is an email field. So I'm just going to go in here and I'm just going to choose a single line of text. I'm going to go, just call it email. And I'm just going to call it responders email address. Single line of text. And I'm not going to adjust any of the advanced options either, so that's fine. The next one that I want to create is another single line of text called challenge completed. And this is the challenge the responder has completed. And single line of text on this one is fine. And I can hit the save button. The next one that I want to add is a multiple lines of text, and I'm going to call this screenshot URL. And this is the Sharepoint URL of uploaded screenshot. And when we're creating our Power Automate flow, what we'll do is we will insert the URL of where the screenshot is saved to when it's uploaded via the form. And I want this as multiple lines of text. Excellent. And then my next one is a link URL. And again, multiple lines of text. The reason why we're doing the multiple lines of text for these two fields is that URLs could be quite long and exceed the length of a single line of text. So it's easier just to have the have it as multiple lines of text. So it can be a really long URL if required. And this is the URL link provided by responder. Next one that I want to create is just a single line of text for level of certification. And we'll have another column for difficulty of challenge. I've not spelled difficulty right there. Actually, I have, that's fine. And the description of it is just difficulty of challenge. Responder has submitted. Single line of text for that one. The next one that I want to create is challenge comments. And this is commentary provided by responder. And this one I want to have multiple lines of text because I don't know how much that they're going to enter. So that covers all of the fields and questions that we've created in the form. The next thing that we want to do is just add 2 more columns so that we can capture whether or not the record is has been approved or rejected, and also the approver's commentary, because when it's submitted for approval, the approver can provide commentary as well. I'm just going to add another one for another column and just call it approved. Approval response, and single line of text is fine. And then add our last column for multiple lines of text and just go approver's commentary. And the reason why we capture this is so that we can provide some positive feedback or some clarification to the submitter for when their submission is reviewed. So if they've done a good job or they've noticed something tricky, we can put a note in there and basically congratulate them or give them some advice if they're stuck on something. And the other part of it is that if the submission is rejected, the approvers are expected to put the reason why it's rejected into the commentary field so that the submitter can address the reason why it was rejected and potentially resubmit that challenge as well. So now that we've done that and we've saved it, our form is pretty much complete. The only thing that we want to do is we want to make this title field not required. And I can't do this from this drop down box at all. But what I can do instead is if I hit the settings button and then if I go to list settings, that will allow me to adjust the list settings directly. And what I can do is select title, and all I want to do is I don't want to make this a requirement. So I just want to unselect require that the column contains information. And the reason why is that we just haven't used this column in our Power Automate flows, so that it's not, and we don't want it to expect a value. Otherwise, when we try and create new records, it'll create some errors, some issues for us. So with that, our list is complete. And now what we need to do from here is to set up a Power Automate flow that will trigger whenever we receive a response to add the response into the Sharepoint list. And then we want a secondary flow that will listen for when a new response is added to the list and trigger an approval whenever a new response is added to the list as well. And the reason why we split those out is so that we can do a bulk upload later on, rather than asking our submitters to potentially submit hundreds of challenges at once. Individually, we can ask them to provide the details in one file and upload them really quickly for them. So that's it for the Sharepoint list creation. Stay tuned for the next video where we start to create the Power Automate flow that will take the response from a form and push it into Sharepoint. Look forward to seeing you then.